Russell Westbrook sees a fan holding a sign saying "You saved my life," then learns the full story. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The arena lights still buzzed in Russell Westbrook's ears even after the final buzzer. The noise, the adrenaline, the flashbulbs, he'd lived it so many times, it barely registered now. Another comeback win. Another triple-double. Another night proving he still had it. He jogged into the tunnel, sweat still dripping from his chin, dapping up trainers, coaches, and one of the security guards who always kept post near the locker room. His mind had already moved past the game, onto treatment, family, recovery. Same routine. But just before stepping through the parking lot doors, he caught a glimpse of something out of place. A kid, maybe late teens, standing completely still while everyone else pushed forward or yelled or filmed on their phones. He wasn't cheering. He wasn't trying to get a selfie. He was holding a sign. A simple white poster board with black Sharpie letters that read, "You saved my life. Thank you, Russ." Russ stopped. The people around him didn't notice. He squinted through the lights above the exit, trying to focus. A handler touched his shoulder. "Car's ready, Russ." But Russ didn't move. Something about the way the kid stood, quiet, frozen, like just being there, took everything he had, hooked deep into Russ's chest. He walked straight toward him. The fans around the boy stepped back instinctively. Some pulled out phones. The kid's eyes widened. He looked terrified. Russ stopped a few feet away, nodding once, the way he would to someone he respected. "What's your name?" The kid opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then, "Marcus." "All right, Marcus." Russ looked at the sign. "Talk to me." Marcus swallowed hard and looked down. From his backpack, he slowly pulled out a worn-out composition notebook. The kind with duct tape on the spine. The kind that had been opened and closed 1,000 times. He handed it to Russ. I wrote it all down." Couldn't say it out loud. "Not yet." Russ took it. He wasn't used to this part. He'd met fans. Shaken hands. Signed autographs. But this wasn't that. He glanced at security, who were starting to shift uncomfortably. Russ gave them a look that said, "We're good." He motioned toward the low wall near the edge of the lot. Marcus followed him over. They sat. The parking lot lights above them flickered every few seconds. Russ opened the notebook. The first page was a list of dates. Not game dates. Not birthdays. Hospital visits. Med changes. Panic attacks. The second page was a letter. Addressed to #0. "I don't know why I'm writing this. You'll never see it. But I need to get it out or I'm not gonna make it another week." Russ read in silence. Every few lines he'd pause, eyes locked on a sentence like it punched him in the gut. "I watched you play with fire when nobody clapped for you. I saw you scream at yourself when you messed up. I started doing that too, just to keep moving. They said I was broken. They said I had to take pills to be normal. But when I watched you, you made me feel like maybe being intense wasn't a problem, it was power." Russ's hands tightened around the notebook. He looked up. Marcus was staring at the pavement, eyes glassy. "I'm good now," Marcus said softly. "Not fixed. But good enough to show up. That's what I tell the kids now." Russ frowned. "What kids?" Marcus hesitated, then pulled out his phone and opened an Instagram page. At Why Not Mentor, follower count in the low hundreds. Dozens of reels. Clips talking to teens. Messages of encouragement. "I started this last year. For the ones who can't talk yet. The way I couldn't. I just kept thinking, if I made it out, maybe they can too." Russ looked at him. Really looked. The kid wasn't just a fan. He was a survivor. A fighter. And apparently, a leader. How long you been doing this? Year and a half. You do it alone? Marcus nodded. Mostly. Sometimes shelters help with food. But the content, the calls, the meetups, it's me. I just wanted to give back what I got from you. Russ sat back, running his fingers along the spine of the notebook. He remembered being 17. Feeling like the world didn't give a damn unless you won. He remembered the nights he trained with his cousin Ray under the broken gym lights in Inglewood. Ray always said, someone's watching, even when you don't see them. So keep going like they need you to. Now here this kid was, proving it. Russ stood. You eating tonight? Marcus blinked. I was just gonna head back to the shelter near Florence. Nah. Come with me. We're gonna eat like kings tonight. Marcus's mouth dropped open. Russ didn't say anything more. Just handed the notebook back, nodded toward the black SUV nearby, and started walking. Marcus followed, quiet, stunned. Before getting in, Russ looked back at the arena, then at the flickering lot lights. Funny how the most important part of his night didn't happen on the court. And as the doors closed, neither of them saw the sign still laying on the pavement, fluttering slightly in the breeze. You saved my life. The words were already doing the same for someone else. The restaurant was quiet, late-night spot. Russ liked not for the food, but the peace. No cameras. No fans. Just space to breathe. Marcus barely touched his burger. He kept glancing at his notebook like it was going to get up and run away. Russ finally broke the silence. You always carry that with you? Marcus nodded. It's like my receipts. For all the times I didn't give up. Russ looked at him, then at the notebook. It's heavy. You know that? Yeah. I know. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The hum of the ceiling fan and the soft clink of dishes behind the counter were the only sounds. Then Marcus leaned forward. You probably don't remember the game. OKC versus Portland. 2016, you dropped 45. Russ raised an eyebrow. I've had a few of those. I know. But that night, I was on a 72-hour psych hold. Russ froze mid-bite. Marcus kept going. I was 13. Hadn't said a word to anyone in 2 weeks. My mom snuck her phone into the visiting room and played your post-game interview. You were yelling about Hart, about how nobody outworks me. I don't know what happened. I just sat up. Said, why not me? The nurse dropped her clipboard. Russ leaned back, letting the story sink in. I kept watching you after that. Every game, every press conference. You were like, this walking permission slip to be intense, to care, even when everyone says you're too much. You made it okay to fight back. Russ didn't respond. He stared at the tabletop, jaw tight. I never got to thank you, Marcus said. Till tonight. Russ finally looked up. You just did. Then Marcus pulled something else out of his bag. A beat-up jersey. Thunder blue. On the front, a black signature faded from years of wear. I've had this forever. But it's not signed by you. Russ looked closer. He knew that signature. R. Washington. His cousin, Ray. Suddenly the booth felt smaller. Where'd you get this? Ray gave it to me when I was 10, Marcus said. He was running this after-school basketball thing in Inglewood. I was failing school. Angry all the time. He saw me fighting in the parking lot one day. Pulled me aside. Didn't yell. Just asked if I wanted to shoot around. Russ shook his head slowly. I didn't know he was still doing that back then. He was. Didn't talk much about you, except once. Said, my cousin's gonna be great. You'll see him on TV someday. Keep this jersey. It'll mean something soon. Marcus's voice cracked on the last words. He was the first person who ever looked at me like I wasn't a lost cause. Russ didn't speak. His throat tightened too fast. Ray had been the rock. Not just for him, but for half the neighborhood. When Ray died in that car crash, it shattered something inside Russ that never really healed. He took the jersey gently, turned it over, and looked at the old ink like it was a message from the past. You held onto this all this time? Every day. When it got bad, I'd sleep with it under my pillow. Russ set it down carefully. He exhaled, then reached into his own pocket and pulled out a folded photo. It was old. Torn at the edges. Him and Ray, back in high school. They were sweaty, grinning, standing on the outdoor court 2 blocks from their grandmother's house. Russ slid it across the table. I've had this in my wallet since the draft. Marcus looked down at the picture. His lips parted, stunned. I remember that court, he whispered. Russ nodded. Ray taught me how to compete there. Taught me how to lose, too. A beat passed. You know what he used to say? Russ asked. That the court don't lie. It don't care how much money you got, where you're from, what you've done. All it knows is whether you show up. Marcus nodded slowly. That's how I live now. One day at a time. Show up, give what I got, and try not to let the darkness win. Russ looked at him with quiet respect. You do that for other people, too? Marcus shrugged. I try. Some kids just need someone to say, I see you. That's what you and Ray did for me. So now I try to do it for them. Russ leaned back, arms crossed, mind racing. He'd spent years being criticized for playing too hard, caring too much, wearing his heart on his sleeve. But if even one kid like Marcus had seen strength in that, maybe it had all been worth it. He tapped his fingers against the table, thinking. Tomorrow, Russ said, come to the facility. Don't ask why. Just be there. Marcus blinked. Seriously? Yeah. Bring the notebook. Russ grabbed the check and stood. Marcus still looked like he couldn't believe any of this was real. As they stepped into the cold night air, Russ paused. I almost didn't come out to tunnel tonight, he said. I was gassed. Whole body aching. Thought about just going straight to the car. Marcus gave a small smile. Glad you didn't. Me too. They walked toward the SUV, the arena now dark behind them. Neither of them noticed a kid a few cars away, peeking out the window of a beat-up sedan, recording quietly on a phone. Later, that video would go viral. Not because it was flashy, but because of what it showed, a superstar and a stranger, connected by pain, grit, and something most people forget exists in this world, hope. Russ was already waiting at the facility the next morning, hoodie up, alone on the baseline of the practice court. The arena lights were off. Just him, a basketball, and the sound of his sneakers scuffing the floor. The doors creaked open. Marcus walked in, holding the notebook tight to his chest. He looked around nervously, then spotted Russ and froze. You actually meant it, he said, voice quiet. Russ passed him the ball without answering. Marcus caught it, surprised. Shoot. Marcus hesitated. It's been a while. Don't matter. He dribbled once, lined it up, and bricked it off the backboard. Russ didn't react. Just caught the rebound, passed it back. Again. They kept that up for 5 minutes. No talking. Just rhythm. Misses, rebounds, more shots. Finally, Russ spoke. You got game in you. Just gotta get your wind back. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. This isn't why you brought me here. Russ nodded. You're right. He walked over to the bleachers, sat down, and motioned for Marcus to join him. You ever think about doing this for real? Doing what? Speaking. Mentoring. Not just online. In schools. On courts. Where it counts. Marcus laughed under his breath. Man, I sleep in a shelter half the week. I'm not exactly speaker material. Neither was I. I just showed up. Over and over. Marcus looked at him. You're Russell Westbrook. You had millions watching you since college. Russ shook his head. You know how many nights I went home thinking none of it mattered? Like I was screaming into a void? He leaned forward. But then someone like you shows up. With a notebook. With Ray's jersey. And it's like, damn. It did matter. Marcus lowered his eyes. Russ continued, that's why I want you to come with me tonight. Where? Rec Center in Inglewood. Ray's old spot. They reopened it last year. I go sometimes. Talk to the kids. But tonight, I want you to speak. Marcus went pale. No way. You already did the hard part. You survived. You wrote it down. That's all they need to hear. Marcus gripped the notebook tighter. I'm not ready. Russ looked at him for a long second. You never will be. That's the trick. Marcus didn't answer. But he didn't say no either. That night, they pulled up to a low brick building with a rusted chain-link fence and flickering overhead lights. Kids were shooting around out back. Inside, a crowd of teens filled the gym bleachers. Coaches, parents, a few local reporters. The second Russ walked in, heads turned. Phones came out. But he waved them off. This ain't about me tonight, he said. It's about someone who reminds me a lot of my cousin. Someone who's been through hell and still shows up. He nodded toward Marcus. The mic was passed. Marcus stood there for a moment, stiff, notebook shaking in his hands. He opened it. Then closed it again. And spoke. My name is Marcus. I grew up not far from here. I used to think I wasn't going to make it past 17. The crowd was dead silent. I thought being angry meant I was broken. I thought being tired all the time meant I was weak. But then I saw someone, this guy right here, play like his life depended on every possession. He nodded toward Russ. And it made me think, maybe there's a place in the world for people like us. A pause. I still struggle. I still fall apart some nights. But I also show up. I talk to other kids now. I tell them what I needed someone to tell me, you're not crazy. You're not a mistake. You're alive, and that means there's still time to fight. There wasn't a dry eye in the place. When he finished, the kids didn't clap right away. They just sat with it. Then a few stood. Then more. Applause exploded. Not wild or forced, but raw. Real. Afterward, a boy about 12 came up to Marcus, holding a crumpled piece of paper. My brother's locked up. I didn't think anyone else knew how that felt. Marcus knelt, took the paper, and put it in his notebook. I do, he said. And you're not alone. Russ watched from a few steps away, jaw tight. He felt Ray in that room. Felt his voice echoing in the walls. After the crowd thinned out, Russ and Marcus sat outside on the steps. You crushed that, Russ said. Marcus exhaled. I feel like I got hit by a train. Russ chuckled. That means you told the truth. Then his face turned serious. There's something else I didn't tell you. About Ray. Marcus turned. Day he died, he was coming back from a meeting. He'd just pitched an idea to turn this rec center into a city-run program. Mentorship, ball training, tutoring. All of it. He wanted to scale it. I never knew that. Nobody did. I found the proposal in his glove box after the crash. Russ looked at Marcus. I never opened it. Until last week. Marcus swallowed. He called it the Why Not Project. The silence sat between them like a heartbeat. Then Russ said, I think it's time to finish what he started. You and me. Marcus didn't answer. But the way he nodded told Russ everything. The sign in the parking lot wasn't just a thank you anymore. It was a beginning. Russ didn't waste time. Within a week, he called his foundation director and laid out the vision: partner with community centers, start local, let Marcus run the youth outreach. The name was already decided, the Why Not Project. But while Russ had access and funding, Marcus had something just as critical: trust. The kids saw themselves in him. The pain. The fire. The honesty. The first few sessions at the rec center were messy. Half the teens came in skeptical, some didn't even speak. Marcus never forced anything. He let them vent, sit in silence, scribble in notebooks. One day, a kid named Ty threw a chair across the gym. Everyone tensed. Marcus didn't flinch. Just walked over, picked up the chair, and sat down in front of him. "You good?" he asked. Ty stared at the floor. "No." "That's all right." "Neither was I." "You want to talk or shoot?" Ty chose the ball. The session turned into a one-on-one with no scoreboard. Just breathing, sweat, and unspoken healing. Word started to spread. More kids showed up. Local schools reached out. Then the press came calling. Russ kept them at bay for a while. "Let it grow first," he said. "Let it be real." But one article still slipped through, a blog piece titled, "Westbrook Funds Local Project, led by former homeless teen." It went viral. Marcus saw it on his phone while riding the bus back to the shelter. The headline hit harder than he expected. Former homeless teen. The label felt like a tattoo he never asked for. When he walked into the shelter that night, the staff looked at him differently. One of the regulars slapped his back. "Man, look at you now." But Marcus didn't feel proud. He felt exposed. The next morning, Russ noticed something was off. Marcus didn't show up to the gym. No call. No message. Russ drove to the shelter. The lady at the front desk looked nervous. "He left early," she said. "Told us he had to disappear for a while." Russ didn't wait. He called, texted, DM'd. Nothing. By nightfall, he was pacing outside the rec center, frustrated. It wasn't until 2 days later that Marcus finally reached out. One text. "You free to talk?" They met at the underpass near the train tracks, where the buses passed every 30 minutes and the streetlights flickered like a bad memory. Marcus was sitting on a bench, hoodie up, backpack on the ground beside him. Russ walked up and said nothing. Just sat down. After a long pause, Marcus spoke. "I didn't ask for this." The spotlight. The title. That headline made me feel like I was just some pity case with a mic. Russ nodded slowly. "I get that." "Do you?" Marcus turned, frustration flashing. "Because you've been famous since you were 20. You know who you are. I'm still figuring it out. And now the world's already decided for me." Russ didn't react. He let it hang. "Back when I was sleeping on trains," Marcus continued, "nobody cared what I had to say. Now, because I shook your hand and didn't die, I'm worth a story?" Russ looked over. "You think that's why I'm here?" "I don't know," Marcus said. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a good headline for your brand." The word stung. Russ stood up, walked a few steps, then turned around. "You think this is about PR? You think I built this thing for press?" Marcus stayed quiet. "I built it because I buried the man who taught me how to survive. And now I've met the only other person who carries his fire. You don't get to walk away from that." Marcus looked down. His voice cracked. "I just feel like I'm wearing shoes that don't fit." Russ crouched in front of him. "You're not wearing mine. You're wearing yours. You made your own path. Own that." He stood again and took a deep breath. "But if you're walking away, say it now. Don't leave me and those kids guessing." Marcus looked up, eyes red. "I'm not walking away. I just needed to feel like I still had a choice." Russ gave a small nod. "You always do. That's what Ray taught us." Choice matters more than circumstance. Marcus wiped his eyes. I'm back, he said. But on one condition. What's that? I want a space for the kids to create. Not just talk. Music, art, whatever helps them breathe. We call it Ray's Room. Russ smiled. Done. The handshake that followed wasn't just a deal, it was a commitment. Over the next month, the rec center transformed. They converted the old supply closet into a studio space. New walls, donated gear, notebooks stacked on shelves. On the door, they painted a mural. Ray's Room, for the kids who show up anyway. The first song recorded in there? Ties. A freestyle about pain, pressure, and perseverance. Marcus mixed it himself. He didn't go back to the shelter after that. Russ quietly paid for a small apartment nearby. Marcus didn't ask questions. He just showed up every day, ready to work. One night, after locking up, Marcus walked outside and saw Russ standing under the same streetlight where they first met. No press. No fans. Just them. Russ handed him something wrapped in a cloth. Marcus unwrapped it slowly. Inside was an old digital watch. Beat up, but still ticking. This was Ray's, Russ said. He wore it every day. Marcus held it like a piece of gold. I can't take this. You already have, Russ replied. And for the first time in a long while, Marcus didn't feel lost. He felt ready. The first official Why Not Project event drew over 100 kids. The bleachers were packed. No tickets. No celebrity guests. Just families, local coaches, a few teachers, and kids who didn't think anyone cared about their story, until now. The gym was lit brighter than usual. On one end, a full court game was underway, half organized, half chaos. On the other end, Ray's Room was open. A dozen kids were sketching, recording, writing bars. Music floated through the halls, clashing with the squeak of sneakers and shouts of defense. Marcus stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand, watching it all. You ready? Russ said, walking up beside him. Marcus exhaled. Let's do it. They walked to the center of the court where a mic had been set up. The ref blew the whistle, and the kids stopped mid-play, ball still bouncing. Russ took the mic first. Y'all know I've played in some loud gyms. Madison Square Garden. Staples. OKC when it was rocking. But nothing sounds better than this. The crowd cheered. A few phones came out, but most people just listened. This ain't about basketball. This is about showing up. Some of y'all came here straight from school. Some came hungry. Some walked here alone. But you showed up. He turned to Marcus. And now I want y'all to hear from someone who knows what it means to fight through all of it. Russ handed Marcus the mic. The gym quieted. Marcus took a breath. I used to think my story didn't matter. That I was just a mistake somebody else had to manage. But then I saw someone play every night like the world was on fire, and he never backed down. That showed me something. He paused. But what saved me wasn't just Russell. It was someone most of you never got to meet. His cousin, Ray. Ray gave me my first basketball. First book of poetry. First reason to think I could be more than angry. Marcus looked around the room. This center? This project? This is what legacy looks like. Not a statue. Not a jersey. But y'all. Us. Together. Not giving up. The gym erupted. After the mic was passed back, Marcus stepped aside. Russ leaned in. That was perfect. Marcus grinned. Wasn't even nervous this time. Sounded like you've been doing this 10 years. I've been living it. That helps. Later that night, after the crowd thinned and the kids filed out, Marcus stayed back to clean up. He swept near the mural outside Ray's room, now filled with handprints in different colors. Every kid who entered left one. Russ watched him quietly, then stepped in to help. Got something for you, Russ said, reaching into his coat. He pulled out a sealed envelope. Marcus took it, eyebrows raised. Open it. Inside was a letter on official foundation letterhead, and a check. The letter welcomed Marcus as Director of Youth Engagement. The check was for his first year's salary. Marcus didn't speak. He stared at the paper like it couldn't be real. I didn't want this to be a favor, Russ said. I wanted it to be a job. A mission. Something you build from the ground up. Marcus finally found his voice. You serious? Russ smirked. Too serious. The two stood there for a long moment. You earned this, Russ added. Every night you didn't quit. Every kid you sat with. Every page in that notebook. Marcus looked down at the letter. Ray would have liked this. Russ nodded. He would have liked you. Later that week, a video surfaced online, security footage from outside the arena the night Russ first saw Marcus. The fan holding the sign. The handshake. The moment Russ stopped. The clip wasn't posted by media or a foundation. It came from a girl who'd been parked nearby, filming with a cracked phone. She captioned it, "This is what real looks like." The video spread. Millions of views in a few days. But Russ and Marcus never commented on it. They didn't need to. Months passed. The Why Not project expanded. Ray's room popped up in 2 more cities. Former at-risk teens started coming back as mentors. One of them, Ty, now helped lead group sessions. He wrote a song called Still Here and performed it at a local showcase. Marcus introduced him that night. This kid used to throw chairs, he said with a grin. The room laughed, but Ty just nodded, proud. Marcus moved into a new apartment near the center. Nothing fancy. Just clean walls, a desk, a microwave that worked. He hung Ray's jersey on the wall. The watch stayed on his wrist. One morning, Russ pulled up in front of the center early. Before the kids arrived. Just him and Marcus again, like it started. You good? Russ asked. Marcus nodded. Better than I ever thought I'd be. Russ reached into his bag, pulled out something wrapped in tissue. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Another gift? Not exactly. He unwrapped it. A framed photo. It was the one from Russ's wallet, him and Ray, younger, happy, on that outdoor court. But now there was a new photo beside it. Marcus, standing in front of Ray's room, surrounded by kids, all smiling. Russ pointed to the caption etched on the bottom, "Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's who you lift while you're here." Marcus set it on the wall inside the center's entrance. The kids would pass it every day. The story that started with a sign and a notebook didn't need a documentary or a headline to matter. It lived in the kids who now believed they had a future. It lived in a rec center once forgotten, now reborn. And it lived in a quiet truth Russell Westbrook carried with him every time he stepped on the court. Sometimes the biggest win comes after the final buzzer, when nobody's watching and you still choose to show up.